Good day and greeting to our doctor. Today our group, which consists of 5 members from group 13, will be presenting commercial law question 5 based on the case between Ibrahim, Chong and also Lim. So I'm Vinasri Rakesh, my metric number S71341. Today I will elaborate more on the case that we have choose. Here I've attached the case. So the problematic question case is Ibrahim, a merchant from Pahang, entrusted Chong with the consignment of durian that's destined for Singapore. The agreement was explicit. Chong was to deliver durians promptly to Lim, a trader known for the stringent quality standards. Lim's reputation was built on the offering only the freshened produce, and he had a particular preference for the young durians with the cluster still crisp within the shell. However, torrential rains led to the severe flooding in Johor, rendering the roads impassable. Chong's lorry, laden with the precious cargo, and marooned for 5 days. As the time ticked away, the durians rapidly descended from ripe to overripe, and the husk cracked open a sure sign of their deteriorating state. Although well versed in Lim exacting standard, Chong realized that inevitable Lim rejected this batch of durians. Experience told Chong that Lim acceptance criteria was inflexible, especially regarding the fruit age and freshness. Faced with the cargo of the durian that had crossed the threshold from the desirable to unpalatable, Chong made a decision. He sold durians at the roadside stall at a significantly reduced price to mitigate losses and salvage what little value remained. This decision was made unilaterally without seeking Ibrahim's consent or even notifying him of the problem. So briefly, this case is about, under the law of agency, an agent must act within the scope of authority given by the principal and has a duty to follow instruction and act in the principal's best interest. In this case, Chong was clearly instructed by Ibrahim to deliver the durians to Lim, a trader known for only accepting the fresh produce. Due to the unforeseen flood, the durian became overripe and no longer met Lim's standard. Without informing Ibrahim, Chong unilaterally sold the durians at the roadside stall at a reduced price. From the Lim side, under the Sale of Goods Act 1957 SOGA, buyers have the right to reject goods if they don't meet the agreed quality. This is a part of implied condition under Section 15 and 16. The good must be presentable quality and suitable for the intended purpose. Since the durian were no longer fresh, Lim had the legal right to refuse them. So from what I've explained on the case, there is 2 issues we have found. The first issue is whether Lim, as the third-party buyer, had the legal right under the Sale of Goods Act 1957 to reject the durians due to their failure to meet the implied conditions of the quality and timelines.
Hello, my name is Nur Nabila binti Kamaluddin. My matrix number is S71996. Now, I will continue to present about the legal principle applied for the first issue where it falls under the Sale of Goods Act 1957 SOGA 1957, a contract of sale of goods as contract whereby the seller transfer or agrees to transfer the property in goods to the buyer for a price. So for the first section, under Statute SOGA 1957, Section 15 implied condition in sale by description. Where there is a contract for the sale of goods by description, there is an implied condition that the goods should correspond with the description. This section applies even if the buyer has seen the goods, if they are sold not merely as specific items, but as items corresponding to a description. Why this section was chosen? Because the buyer has clearly stated the description that they want from the goods, which is durian, but the durian that were delivered to them was not suitable with what it described. So Lim has right to reject the items. For the second section, 16(1)(a) SOGA, implied condition as to fitness for particular purpose. The buyer expressly or by implication makes known to the seller the particular purpose for which the goods are required. So the section was chosen because the buyer has clearly stated the purpose of the reason why it want the durians to look like what it described. But the durian that were delivered was not suitable for the purpose anymore, so it justified the section for the first issue.
Hi everyone, my name is Chen Songkram from D, and I like Award. My number metric is S71450. Today I will present about case law, remove and co and loudest and co. In this case, permission to sell 3,000 canned fruits tin in 30 tin packs. They provided the property number of tins. However, half of the case contains 24 instead of 13. The idea that event-side contractual relation might allow the buyer to reject the products, regardless of quantity or market values. This case highlights how stringent contract conditions must be when selling products. Second, price versus last. In this case, the claimant purchased a bottle of hot water from the defendant, a pharmacy. This case serves as an example for the legal requirement that products be suitable for the use for which they were designed or reasonably anticipated. If this criteria is not met, the waiter may be held accountable for any damage or loss that result.
My name is Nur Alia Maisara binti Hassan. My metric number is 71702. Next, application issue 1. Lim bought the durians because they were described as fresh, young, and will be delivered on schedule. Flooding caused delay and deterioration, resulting in overripe and factory durians. Goods sold by description are required to fit the description under Section 50 SOGA 1957. The durians no longer did. Freshness was important and the item were not suitable for the buyer recognized purpose as required by Section 61A of SOGA 1957. Outcome: Lim was legally justified in rejecting the durian since they did not meet board's import standard.
My name is Nurul Ain binti SMU. My match number S7125. The conclusion for issue 1, Lim had the legal right to reject the durance under the Sale of Goods Act 1957 because the durance did not match the description as fresh, they were unfit for his intended purpose, and the delay in delivery caused the durance to deteriorate. Therefore, his rejection was valid and legally justified.
So the second issue that we have found is whether Chong, acting as an agent, has the right to sell the durians without telling Ibrahim the principal or by getting his approval.
Okay, now we're gonna continue with the legal principle for the second issue, which is Contract Act 1950 and Act relating to contracts. So for the first section, it falls under Section 135, Agent and Principal. A person hired to act on behalf of another, the principal in interaction with third parties, is known as an agent. So according to this issue, Chong is the agent and Ibrahim is the principal. Second section is section 167, agent's duty to communicate with principal. So when faced with challenges, the agent must communicate with the principal and ask for instructions using reasonable diligence. According to this section, when faced with challenges, the agent, which is Chong, must communicate with the principal Ibrahim and ask for instruction using reasonable diligence. The agent Chong should tell the principal about the durance condition and tell them that the buyer rejected to buy the durian. So for the third section is section 140, express and implied authority. Express authority clearly expressed in written or spoken words, and the implied authority is deduced from the station or standard procedure. So Cho supposedly asked the principal, which is Ibrahim, on what to do with the leftover of durians, but he did not, and he decided to sell the durian at the roadside without asking permission from Ibrahim. So for the section 142, emergency's power of agent. In an emergency, an agent may use the discretion of a reasonable person to act without prior consent in order to protect the principal from loss. However, we understand that Chong wanted to sell the durians because he wanted to reduce the loss, but he did not ask him permission from the principal. So as a principal, he has a right to claim the benefits from Chong because he is still the principal or the owner of the durian.
In issue number 2, the case law is Chan Yinti versus Lim Jacks and CO Malaya. In this case, the link is agency and responsibility. In both instances, one party was held liable for implying another might act on their behalf. Mr. Chan could not delete the agency in Chan Yiti. As seen in both instances, representation and action may legally by someone without official authorities. Next, Springer vs. Great Western Railway CO 1921. In this case, Mr. Stranger engaged Great Western Railway to ship Channel Islands tomato to London. Bad weather and a strict delay and spoiled the tomatoes. To cut costs, Great Western Railway sold tomato in Weymouth without consulting Mr. Springer. They say they were a necessary agents. In both instances, agent asked without the principal consent, citing perishable commodity and delay. In both cases, the principal was reachable.
For application issue 2, did Chong have the authority to sell the durians as an agent without Ibrahim's consent or knowledge? The answer is no. Ibrahim assigned Chong to deliver durians to Lim, but after a flawed delivery, Chong sold them to someone else without telling Ibrahim. According to Section 167 of the Contracts of 1950, an agent is required to notify the principal in challenging circumstances. Chong neglected to get in touch with Ibrahim prior to closing the deal. Chong was granted express authority to deliver durians, not to sell them, as stated in Section 140 of the Contracts 1950. No implicit authority was established. There was no actual emergency. Chong could have weighed or stored the durians in accordance with Section 142 of the Contracts 1950, which states that an agent may, in an emergency, to safeguard in the interest of the principal.
My name is Nurul Nur Ain Binti SMB. My magic number is 72125. The conclusion for issue 2, Chong had no legal authority to sell the durians without informing Ibrahim. He failed to communicate during a difficult situation, which breached Section 167. He also acted beyond his express authority under Section 140, and the situation did not qualify as an emergency under Section 142. Therefore, Chong clearly violated his duties as an agent.